and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to talk about gray hair. I'm going to go into a little bit about what gray hair is, what it isn't, and I'm going to teach you how to care for your graying hair. And if you're new here, my name is Michelle. I'm a licensed hairstylist with over 20 years of experience, and on this channel I use those 20 years of experience to help you have healthy, happy hair. So let's talk about what gray hair is. Gray hair is hair that no longer has any pigment in it. Ordinarily, hair has pigment in it called melanin, and the darker your hair is, the more of it that it actually has. If your hair is lighter, you have less of it. And once it goes gray, it loses its pigmented altogether. So it's just non-pigmented hair. Now, gray hair can change and be different than your pigmented hair, or it can actually be the same. And I actually did a video about common misconceptions about gray hair, and I'll go ahead and put a card up here so you can check that out. I will say that one of the biggest misconceptions about gray hair is that it tends to be coarse and wiry, and that it's unruly, and it's not like that for everybody. Some people can have coarse, wiry gray hair, but not everybody will. And your gray hair can be completely different than another person's gray hair, and your gray hair can be completely different than your pigmented hair. Or your gray hair can be exactly the same as your pigmented hair, it just lacks the pigment, which is the case with my gray hair. I am actually roughly 30% gray, and the highest concentration is at my temples. Now, my gray hair is exactly the same as the rest of my pigmented hair. It behaves the same, it pretty much curls the same, it feels the same, it's coarse, it's not any more or less porous than the rest of my hair. It's all pretty much the same. However, that is not the case for everybody. Some people might find that their gray hair becomes a bit more coarse. Some people might find that it actually becomes really fine, because yes, you can have really fine gray hair. And you can find that your gray hair may have a different porosity than the rest of your hair. So the first thing to do in caring for your gray hair is going to be assessing what your gray hair is like. And so just assess it the way that you would with your pigmented hair. Try to determine whether or not it's fine or coarse. And fine or coarse meaning the diameter of the hair shaft, so the size of the diameter of the hair shaft. If it is really small, so if you take one of your single strands of hair, roll it between your fingers and you can barely feel it or you don't feel it, it's on the fine end. If you can really feel it, then it's on the coarse end. If you can kind of feel it, it's somewhere in the middle. So that is a good place to start. That is probably one of the biggest determining factors in deciding which types of products to use, is whether or not your hair is fine or coarse. You're gonna want lighter weight for finer hair, and you're gonna want sometimes slightly thicker, richer, heavier products for coarser hair, but it all depends on the coarse hair and what condition it's in and how heavy that is, because coarser hair can tend to be kind of heavy. Mine is heavy, however, it can handle some weight until it starts getting really long, and then it weighs itself down. So it's kind of a balancing act sometimes with coarser, heavier hair. And now I mentioned porosity earlier, and that's because sometimes gray hair, as it loses its pigment, it can sometimes increase the thickness of the cuticle, which is why sometimes gray hair can be resistant to being colored. However, that doesn't happen to absolutely every single person. My hair definitely didn't do that. I don't have resistant gray hair. It takes color very easily, and it is not low porosity. It is the same porosity as the rest of my hair. Now, porosity is something that kind of confuses a lot of people, and it's something that gets talked about a lot. However, when it comes to selecting your shampoos, conditioners, and styling products, it isn't the biggest determining factor in choosing all of those. And unless your hair is at one extreme or the other, it really isn't going to be something that you're going to have to think about a whole heck of a lot. So most people have hair that falls kind of in the middle range as far as porosity goes. There are not too many people who have very low porosity hair naturally, and there are very few people who have high porosity hair. And most of the time, the super extremely high porosity hair comes from chemical damage or heat damage or something like that. You generally don't see that kind of really extreme high porosity hair that comes naturally. Now, can you have naturally higher porosity hair? You can. It's just not on the same level as hair that's been damaged through chemical or through heat. One thing that's easier to determine rather than looking at your porosity, if you're somewhere in between, is just kind of looking at the condition of your hair, or rather feeling the condition of your hair. Is your hair overall pretty healthy, or is it really dry, really brittle? Is it breaking because it is damaged? It has been heat damaged, or you've done chemical things to your hair. Are you trying to grow some of that out? So taking a look at the condition of your hair is actually probably going to be a lot easier than really trying to determine your exact porosity, which your exact porosity isn't going to help you a whole lot. You don't really need to absolutely know that. And your hair is going to have different porosities anyway. The roots are going to be a lower porosity than your ends, and that's because the longer your hair gets, the longer these ends have been hanging around, the more they've been exposed to, so the more porous they become after they've been brushed and combed and washed and they've gotten wet and they've dried. And when your hair gets wet, it swells and it lifts the cuticle a bit, and then the cuticle smooths down, usually through conditioner because of the pH in conditioner. That's what it's designed to do. So after being raised and lowered, and everything done to it, exposed to pollution, exposed to whatever kind of water you have, your hair is going to be more porous at the ends, especially the longer it gets, than it will be up near the roots. So you will have multiple porosities throughout your entire head of hair, which is one of the reasons why knowing your exact porosity isn't really going to do a whole lot to help you. If you just remember that your ends are a lot more porous and you need to give them a little bit more TLC by making sure that you have them nicely coated with conditioner when you're washing your hair, that's definitely going to help with that, with the condition of your ends. And helping the condition of your ends is going to help keeping your ends to curl and keeping them from being so easily damaged. So if your hair is overall pretty healthy, then you have a wide range of products that you can choose from. You really don't need to concentrate on anything that's going to add a lot of protein or a lot of moisture. So you can play around with different things and take care of your hair that way. And gray hair is no different. If it's overall in a really healthy condition, you can, for the most part, play around with a bunch of different things and just find the stuff that your hair seems to really respond well to. You really don't need to go out of your way to find things that are extra moisturizing or contain an extra amount of protein. Now, if your hair tends to be on the more damaged end because you've done some chemical things to it or because of the heat damage, you're gonna want to replenish that moisture that you're losing because you have increased the porosity of your hair so it doesn't stay in there very well. So you're gonna want to get richer, thicker, more moisturizing conditioners to replace that, but don't forget about the protein either, because the protein is going to help maintain the strength and structure of your hair so that your hair can retain the moisture that you're putting into it. So all hair needs both moisture and protein, and I do have a video about the protein moisture balance, and it isn't one or the other. You need both. All hair types need both protein and moisture. It's just how much of each you need is different per person, and it can be different throughout your entire head. It can change from wash day to wash day depending on what your hair has been exposed to and what's been done to it. So if you find yourself on the other end of the spectrum where you feel like your hair really doesn't want to absorb any moisture or absorb water, and it feels like it's really on the low porosity end of things, that's where you're going to really want to concentrate on getting as much moisture in there as possible. However, even though you've probably heard that if you have coarse, low porosity hair or just low porosity hair in general, to stay away from protein, that's actually not true, because like I just said, every hair needs at least a little bit of protein, and your hair can't retain that moisture that you're putting into it if it doesn't have the strength and structure that is needed to be able to hold on to it, and you need protein for that. So if you find that you're throwing all things moisture at your gray hair and it just doesn't seem to be getting any better and it still seems to be really dry, you may want to try adding a little bit of protein to your hair. And now one of the things that I recommend when trying to determine what your hair needs is every time that you put something on your hair, assess how it feels after you've put it on there. So after you've shampooed your hair, give your hair a good feel, see if it feels like it could use some more moisture or if maybe it needs a little bit more protein. And you'll be able to tell if it needs more protein because it feels overly soft and kind of mushy. And then if it's feeling a little bit dry and brittle, put some more moisture on it, and just do that each and every step of the way rather than getting your hair to the point where it's too much protein or too much moisture and then you go the complete opposite direction by doing a wash day that throws all the moisture things at it because you have too much protein, or throws all the protein things at it because you had too much moisture, because then you're just going to be bouncing back and forth between the two extremes instead of really achieving balance. So if you swap out, like maybe you feel over moisturized, so add in a product or two that contains protein within your wash day, and that's going to help bring you back. It might take a couple of wash days to get you back on track, but that's certainly better than bouncing back and forth between each extreme and being completely frustrated with your hair. This will help bring it back into balance, maybe a little bit slower, but you'll get there and you'll stay there a lot easier and you'll be a lot happier with your hair overall. So now let's talk about some of the things that might be happening with your gray hair that may have been different than the hair that is pigmented. So you might find that your gray hair is a bit more fragile and that it's actually gone finer and it's fragile, it breaks easily. That's something that is going to require a little bit more protein. Definitely make sure to put some moisture on there too so it stays soft and supple and doesn't get brittle, but you also are going to want something that is going to strengthen that hair as well. So you're going to want to look for products that say strengthening, fortifying, repairing, that kind of thing. So you're going to want to add those to your routine to really help your fragile hair so that it doesn't break quite so easily. Now let's say that you have gray hair that is of the coarser, more wiry variety. Products with silicones in them actually really help with the manageability of coarse, wiry hair. And I know that silicones get a bad rap. I am not Curly Girl Method, and I have been using silicones and sulfates for 30 plus years. I do not have damage. I do not have buildup from it. There are silicones that you can use if you're using a really high quality product that contains silicones. It is going to help increase the manageability of those more coarse, wiry strands, and it's going to be able to soften them in a way that products that do not contain silicones aren't going to be able to do for you. Now, lastly, in caring for your graying hair, you might notice that your gray hair tends to get a bit discolored very easily. So it'll turn kind of yellowish. And this happens because of things that are getting on your hair. And it gets on your pigmented hair too, but if your hair is dark like mine is, you're not going to notice it. If you're a lighter blonde, you definitely notice it, especially if you're a bleached blonde. You notice the discoloration on your hair. And the things that cause that discoloration might be minerals in your water. It might be air pollution if you live in an urban area. If you're a smoker or you live with one or you are exposed to cigarette smoke frequently, that will also accumulate on your hair and start to turn it a little bit yellow. Also, if you use heat on your hair and you scorch your hair, you can scorch your pigmented hair very easily too. However, you're not going to notice it if your hair is dark, but if your hair is gray and you scorch it, you will see that you have scorched your hair. So that'll discolor it. It'll kind of turn it yellowish or brown depending on how bad you scorched your hair with that heat tool. And the fix for all of this discoloration is to buy a shampoo that is made to keep gray or silver hair or even blonde hair nice and bright and more platinum, more silver and more gray, and to kind of cancel out that yellow. These shampoos do this by having some pigment in there that deposits on your hair and cancels it out. So blue cancels yellow and purple cancels orange. So depending on what you're seeing in your hair, that would be the type of thing that you would want to go for, is a shampoo that has that blue or the purple in there. And there are a multitude of different brands that have the blue or silver shampoo that is made to keep gray hair vibrant or to keep blondes vibrant. So I would definitely recommend getting one of those. And in fact, once I'm growing out my hair color, I only just recently started to grow my color out and allow my silvers to completely come in. So I haven't used any of those shampoos on my hair as of yet because they haven't really gotten discolored by anything, and probably won't until they get a little bit longer and become a little bit more porous and start soaking some of those things up. So once that starts happening, I will definitely be getting a shampoo to help keep my gray really vibrant. It's not something that I would recommend using every single time that you wash, because then it can start going the other way and you can start seeing a blue or purple tinge to your hair, which if you want to see that, that's totally fine, but it's something to be aware of, that sometimes some of these shampoos can be so concentrated that it might deposit just a little too much. So if you don't want to actually see purple or blue, then just keep that in mind and maybe use it every other time that you wash or every third time. You may have to play around with it to see what gets you the vibrancy that you're looking for without leaving the blue or the purple kind of residue or cast on your hair when you're washing it. And one kind of word of warning or caution would be, if you notice that you are experiencing more hair loss than normal, you're starting to see more of your scalp along with a very drastic texture change, it could be a medical issue. And I covered this in a video that I did about thyroidism and your hair, or thyroid problems in your hair. I can't remember the exact title, but I'll put a card up here for you to check that out, so that if that's something that you're struggling with, you can maybe go and see if that sounds like anything that you're experiencing, because that would require a trip to the doctor to get your blood work done to see if you have a thyroid issue so that you can get that taken care of. So I will say that about it. The other thing too is that sometimes we notice some differences in our gray hair that we like to attribute to gray hair. However, it could also coincide with health problems as we get older and we start developing health problems that we did not have when we were younger, that you are now taking medications for. So it could either be the medical problem that's causing the texture change, or the differences in your hair, or the thinning of your hair, or it could also be the medications themselves causing that too. So that is something else to take into consideration, is that it's not necessarily the normal aging process of your hair or what is normal for gray hair, that it could also be something else. So that is something to take into consideration and keep at the back of your mind and maybe look into that. And if you don't have any health issues that you know of, that maybe it might be time to get some blood work done to look into that, to see if maybe you're anemic or whatever. There are different things that can cause this. It is not just because your hair is turning gray, and it is not just because your hair is aging that your hair is going to have this drastic change. Some people do have big changes in their hair as they get older, and a lot of times that's genetic, and you can see that by looking at some of your older relatives to see what their hair looked like and what their hair did as they aged. But it isn't necessarily something that happens to every single person as their hair turns gray and as they get older. So to recap, just assess your hair the same way that you would your pigmented hair. So I do have multiple videos kind of mentioning various hair care tips. So once you've assessed and determined what your hair is and what it kind of needs, you can go back and look at some of those if you need a little bit of help trying to determine all of that. But for the most part, caring for your gray hair is not so incredibly different than taking care of your pigmented hair. It's just a matter of determining what your gray hair is, what it's doing, and finding the products that work best for that type of hair. So hopefully I was able to shed some light on this, and hopefully you found this video helpful. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.